Tilt your head back completely. Open your mouth. Do not make me force you, or you will only hurt yourself. The command was not shouted, but whispered with a terrifying, gravelly intensity that vibrated through the canvas walls of the stifling medical tent, sounding less like a request and more like the final prayer before an execution. Mathilde felt the rough, calloused fingers of the American soldier clamp around her jaw, his grip firm enough to leave white pressure marks on her pale skin, forcing her face toward the harsh, naked electric bulb dangling from the ceiling. Please, I beg you to watch this video until the absolute final second, because the substance about to be forced into this woman's body will completely rewrite your definition of mercy in the theater of war. She was only 22 years old, but looking at her reflection in the polished side of a truck earlier that morning, she had seen a ghost staring back. Her eyes were sunken deep into her skull, and her collarbones protruded like sharp knives beneath her gray, tattered auxiliary uniform. For the last 6 months, as the Third Reich crumbled into dust and ash around them, the propaganda officers had drilled a singular, terrifying narrative into the minds of the German women to ensure they never surrendered. "The Americans are not men," the leaflets had screamed, featuring drawings of jagged-toothed monsters in olive drab. "They are gangsters and beasts who will defile you, poison you, and discard you like trash." Mathilde's stomach had effectively shut down weeks ago, shriveled from a diet of boiled weeds, sawdust, bread, and melted snow, leaving her with a constant, gnawing pain that had eventually faded into a dangerous, floating numbness. Now, strapped to a folding field chair in a camp somewhere near the Rhine, she believed the final stage of the propaganda warnings was coming true. She was helpless, surrounded by the enemy, and about to be silenced forever. She darted her eyes to the left and saw Greta, a girl who used to work in the Berlin communications office, sitting in the next chair with tears streaming silently down her grime-streaked face, her body shaking so hard the chair legs tapped against the floor. "Don't swallow it," Mathilde screamed inside her own mind, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird trying to break the cage. "Whatever they put in your mouth, spit it out. It is liquid fire. It is poison. It is the end." The American standing over her was a giant, a looming silhouette whose uniform smelled of stale tobacco, gun oil, and strange, chemically treated canvas. His face obscured by the shadow of his helmet. He reached for a metal tray on the table beside him, the sound of steel clinking against steel, echoing loudly in the oppressive silence of the tent, causing Mathilde to flinch violently against her restraints. She saw him pick up a tool. It was silver long and curved, glistening under the light, and in her panicked, starving state, it looked like a surgical instrument designed to pry her throat open or sever her tongue. The soldier leaned in closer, his blue eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that she interpreted as pure malice. His breathing heavy and steady in the humid air, like a predator inspecting a trap. "Open," he grunted again, bringing the metal object toward her lips, his other hand moving to pinch her nose shut to force her compliance, a technique she had heard they used on uncooperative prisoners. Mathilde squeezed her eyes shut, her body going rigid as a board, waiting for the burning sensation of acid, the bitter taste of cyanide, or the sharp slice of steel that would end her suffering. She felt the cold metal press against her cracked, bleeding lower lip, and then, with a skillful, undeniable twist of his wrist, the soldier slid the instrument past her teeth and into her mouth. She gagged, her throat constricting reflexively in a spasm of terror. But the soldier didn't pull back. Instead, he tilted the spoon because she realized now it was a spoon that deposited a warm, thick substance onto her tongue. It didn't burn. It didn't sting. Instead, a wave of impossible, overwhelming sweetness washed over her taste buds, a flavor so rich, creamy, and alien that her brain couldn't process the data. It was oatmeal warm, cooked with condensed milk, and heavily laced with sugar mixture that felt like liquid velvet against the raw sores in her mouth, coating her throat with a soothing heat. "Swallow," the American whispered, his voice suddenly losing its harsh, commanding edge, dropping to a gentle tone one might use with a frightened animal or a sick child. Mathilde swallowed, and the warmth traveled down her esophagus, settling in her empty, shrunken stomach with a comforting weight that made her feel instantly lightheaded and dizzy. She opened her eyes, confused, expecting the soldier to be laughing at her humiliation. But instead, She saw him dipping the spoon back into a mess tin, carefully scraping the edges to get a perfect portion without spilling a drop. "Take it slowly," he said, emphasizing the words with a slow, rhythmic hand motion. "Your stomach, too fast, and you die. We go slow, okay? We go very slow." The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow, staggering her mind more than any slap could have. He wasn't restraining her to torture her. He was restraining her to save her life from refeeding syndrome. If she ate too fast, or if she fed herself with her ravenous hunger, the shock of the nutrients hitting her starved system would cause a heart attack. The torture was actually a meticulously calculated medical procedure. She looked at the spoon again, noticing now that the soldier's giant hand was shaking slightly. Not from anger, but from the immense strain of being so gentle with someone so fragile that she might break. Greta, next to her, was no longer crying from fear. She was sobbing with relief as another GI wiped a drop of precious milk from her chin with a clean, white cloth, murmuring words of comfort in English. The monsters from the propaganda posters were gone, replaced by tired, dirty men who were sharing their own limited rations, spoon-feeding the enemy women by hand because their conscience wouldn't allow them to let them starve. Mathilde took the next bite, closing her eyes as the sweetness filled her senses, realizing that the American was watching her not with hatred, but with the critical, worried eye of a nurse monitoring a patient. For 20 minutes, the war did not exist. There were no swastikas or stars and stripes. Only the universal, holy act of one human being sustaining another with the basic fuel of life. That single metal spoon, filled with cheap oats and milk, destroyed years of indoctrination and hatred more effectively than any tank, bomb, or artillery shell ever could. This is a true story inspired by historical records of the 101st Airborne and Allied field hospitals in the spring of 1945. Do you agree that humanity can survive even the darkest times? Tell us in the comments and follow for more stories.